right, voila. Hopefully everybody can see my slides. Thank you guys for so much love in the chat. I'm so excited to see so many familiar names and so many names of new friends. I'm just thrilled to be here speaking at CMX Summit. Being on the stage is a huge honor, a professional dream of mine. So thank you to the entire team at Bevy and CMX for letting me be here today and giving me the opportunity to share some of my work. So hopefully it'll be interesting and you guys will learn from some of the mistakes I've made and the things that I've tried over the years at BigCommerce around managing teams. And we're going to talk about KPIs, right? Very popular topic always in the community industry. So many sessions today and yesterday on KPIs as well. But I want to dial in a little bit more specific and talk about a KPI that's not often discussed, and that's employee level metrics. So what we're going to talk about today is how you can, as a people manager, or maybe an aspiring people manager, implement individual level KPIs so that you can manage the productivity of your team. So like I said, I'll share some lessons learned and what I've done and hopefully some actionable templates that you can screenshot and take with you. Let's get started. Okay, quick slide about me. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Lauren. I live in Austin, Texas. I work at BigCommerce. If you're not familiar with BigCommerce, we are a SaaS company that provides a platform for retailers of any size, any stage of growth to build and manage online stores. I've been super lucky to work at BigCommerce for the past 6 years, seeing a lot of like BigCommerce represent from my team in the chat. So hi, thank you. So I manage a team of 7 direct reports. And when I started at BigCommerce, it was just me, team of 1. I manage our customer community team as well as the developer relations team. And I'm super passionate about people management. It is one of the most rewarding parts of my job, and that's why I wanted to speak with you guys today. And of course, you can see also another thing I'm very passionate about is hating mustard. So very core to who I am. Sorry for those of you that love mustard, but maybe if you have a condiment that you also hate, drop it in the chat. Yes, Jessa, mustard is the worst. Thank you. All right, so here's the plan for what I'm going to do with my time with you guys today. We'll start with a little KPI 101, then we'll cover the why. So why are individual KPIs a good tool for managing teams, and specifically why for community moderators. I'll share best practices. And again, I'm going to try to keep things actionable. So I'll show you some real life examples of what I've put together at BigCommerce. And then we'll do lessons learned and some mistakes and all that trial and error stuff that I've done throughout the years. So let's dive in. All right, KPI 101. What is a KPI? KPI stands for Key Performance Indicator. KPIs are most commonly used on a, that's probably the way that you're most familiar with them, right? It's a way to set up targets and measure progress on big goals or objectives. But what you might not know is that KPIs can also be used as targets to measure individual level employee performance and progress. So individual KPIs are metrics that can help both the manager and the employee understand if expectations are being met, are we delivering results, are we making an impact on the overall team and overall business objectives. So let's look at how individual KPIs fit in with the whole suite of things that you report on in your community. Employee KPIs, you can think of them as the last stop, the most granular level of metrics that you might have. And everything's going to flow from the top down. So at the topmost level is your business value layer. This is where you're talking about ROI. So how is your community program impacting your company and your department's strategic goals? The next layer is that experience level of measurement. So this is going to be, how is your community performing? What's the traffic? What's the engagement? What's the acquisition? What's the adoption look like? Et cetera, et cetera. The third layer is going to be what's under the hood. So this is your operations level of metrics. Here's where you dig into the data to understand what's the user experience, what are the behaviors of who is using the community and why and where. And then finally, last but not least, There's those good old employee level KPIs. So again, that's where you measure individual deliverables that are going to contribute to the success of the entire community experience. So really critical layer because it's going to represent the actual work your team is doing to drive all of the numbers above. Make sense? All right. So I'm going to start with a little backstory to talk about what led me on this journey to develop KPIs for my community moderator team. So in 2015, I joined BigCommerce. Like I said, I was a team of one. In 2016, I hired my first direct report. Shout out to Marissa, who is still on my team today and in the chat right now. And in 2018, I hired 2 more people to my team. And during these early years, my primary focus was all around hiring community moderators with a focus on great engagement and great support experiences in our online forum. So during these early years, things were really great. Our community was thriving. Support was going really well. Lots of expert answers. We were killing it, right? And then one day I was in a one-on-one with one of my top employees, and they said to me, Lauren, I have no idea if I'm doing a good job or not. Y'all, when I tell you I was floored, I was truly shook by this moment, hearing this from one of my top performers in a one-on-one. And so I started like rambling and scrambling, and I was like, of course you're doing a good job. I tell you that all the time. Our metrics are great. I'm happy. Members are happy. Leadership is happy. Like, so of course you're doing a great job. But they weren't convinced. And it was in that moment that I realized I didn't really have a great way to measure or track individual progress on my team. So like, I just didn't have a good answer to their question. And I don't know if you've ever been in that kind of in those shoes as a manager, but it doesn't feel good, right? So this was a big kind of like light bulb moment for me. And I realized it's not enough for me to have the clearest, most perfect job description, the best onboarding, like great performance metrics of how our community is doing. As a manager, I really needed to be able to clearly explain to my employees, like specifically what level of results are going to meet my expectations, exceed my expectations, or needs more work. I needed to get more specific with it, right? So having individual KPIs is just one way that's going to allow your team to be in the driver's seat more. They'll be able to track their personal progress, and they'll know where they stand. They'll be able to confidently know, am I doing a good job? So another question that you might hear from your team is, how the heck am I supposed to know where to spend my time and what to focus on? As you all know, so when you're in the community profession, you do a lot of work, and it's a lot of different work. You're wearing all the hats, you're supporting all the programs, you're monitoring, you're engaging, you're providing support across multiple communities, multiple social platforms, and you can have like the best laid plans for your day, but sometimes the work is highly reactive, right? Like what dumpster fire is going to go off in your online community, what thread blows up out of nowhere and is going to need attention. When you're especially a new community moderator, it can be really difficult to context switch back and forth between all of these things and know where to focus your efforts. So individual KPIs are going to be another great tool to highlight the 4 or 5 areas of your team's responsibilities that are the most important, that no matter what is happening, these things are your North Star, and that's going to let your team manage their time and choices better. And then finally, another big question, am I making any kind of impact at all? So extremely valid question, right? We all want to know that our work and our efforts matter. Think back to those high-level reports that I talked about. It's really hard to connect the dots from like the ROI layer all the way down to like your day-to-day work. There's so many factors, tasks, programs, processes, et cetera, that goes into the community experience. And it doesn't make sense for any individual team members to be responsible or even feel responsible for every one of those top line goals. So KPIs help here too. It's going to help put your employees' work in context and help them connect the dots and understand how they contribute to that overall experience. So those are all the benefits of why this is helpful. let's build some and learn how we do this. So I'm going to start off by showing you guys some best practices, specifically what criteria you can use when developing your goals. So just like any good goal, I believe that employee level KPIs should be SMART. Show of hands in the chat for anybody. Are you familiar with SMART goals? Maybe like a thumbs up if you know SMART goals, thumbs down if you don't. I see yeps, yeppers. Great. I'm a big fan of SMART goals. It's an acronym. And each letter just represents a different criteria that you should keep in mind. Good. Lots of people familiar with them. Perfect. So all of these things relate to employee level KPIs as well. So we'll go through what they are. So S stands for specific. So your goal, whatever you set, needs to be very narrow in scope, very clear, concise, and to the point. You need to spell out the who, what, the how, all the details. M is for measurable. So this one might seem like a no-brainer, right? But truly, whatever you pick, you need to be able to report on this like consistently. There needs to be real data in a report, something that you can look at every single week or every single month. Achievable. So whatever your goal is, it needs to be something that your team has the power to influence and accomplish, and be realistic about this. You don't want to set your team up for failure. Relevant. So is your goal aligned to the goals of your team, your org, your business? If not, pick a new goal. Think back to that chart and those different levels of metrics. Everything should be cascading from the top. And then finally, time bound. So any good goal, it needs to have a deadline or a due date. Your employees need to know what time frame you're using to measure them. Is it weekly? Is it monthly? Spell this out in your KPIs. So that's the standard SMART goal criteria that we all know and love. Let's look at a couple additional considerations, little flavors of SMART goals that are important for employee level KPIs. First, don't pick a KPI that could possibly be shared with another employee. You don't want to put your employees in a situation where they depend on each other for their individual performance results. So if you have two employees that are maybe moderating the same space or sharing ownership over the same process or program, figure out a way to make the KPI as specific and granular, boil down to just what that one person's output is. That's going to be really helpful. Next, no outside factors. So you don't want to pick a KPI that your team doesn't have complete autonomy or control over. So an example of maybe what not to do is have a KPI that would say, around content, moderators need to publish 3 new product news updates per week. Well, what if there are no product releases that week? Your employees are going to be in a situation where they wouldn't meet their expectations and it would be completely out of their control. And then, back to making it time bound, it really needs to be something that is a consistent part of either their daily or their weekly workload in order for this to work. All right, one other best practice here, word of caution before I show you what the final product looks like. This practice has worked great for me on some of the roles on my team, but it is not a one-size-fits-all approach. So you might have roles on your team that are less task-based. Maybe there's less consistency in their workload. Maybe you have employees that are more strategic or experienced. Maybe they're managing large programs. Whatever it might be, measuring their productivity through KPIs might not be the best fit. You might need OKRs or different types of SMART goals that are more related to programs instead of daily workload. Do what feels best for you and your team. Just keep those SMART goal best practices in mind. And that's kind of the bottom line there. So those are the foundations. Let's look at how to build these for your team. All right, so your starting point is to think about what aspect of your community do you want to affect? Do you want to improve engagement? Do you want better support? Do you want to make sure expert answers are given? Start at that community performance level and think about the big goals of your space, where you want to move the needle. Now determine what daily, consistent activities could your employee take that would influence and move the needle on this goal. So you might need to dig into the data here to confirm what your theories are. Now you know what activity is going to move the needle. You've done your data-driven research. Congrats, you can draft your KPI now. Hooray. But wait, is it smart? Don't forget to run your goal through your SMART criteria. And then you got to define success. So this is a super crucial step. It's not enough just to have a goal. You need to define what levels of output or performance are going to meet, exceed, not meet, be unacceptable. What is this going to look like? This is going to help your employees very clearly understand how they're doing. And then you're done. Yay, roll it out, test, learn, put it out into the world. All right, let's look at an example of what this looks like with an actual KPI in place. So the community goal I want to improve is engagement. So I want to increase the number of posts and comments in our online community. I know from looking at our data that the more our moderators participate and comment, the higher our total engagement is week over week. And then just an aside for all of you community pros out there, I do remove moderator comments out of my final engagement number, but I can clearly see that the more we're participating and encouraging, asking clarifying questions, saying thank you, tagging experts in, et cetera, you guys know all the tactics, the more lively the conversations are. All right, so I've got my decision. I know what I'm going to measure. It's going to be the number of weekly comments by my community moderator. Is it smart? Yes, it is. It's a SMART goal. And now I can define success. So these are the numbers. This is just an example of what you could use to track progress and set expectations with your employees. So you say what range exceeds, meets, etc. And then you test and learn. All right, so this is what the finished product looks like. You document your KPIs, put them in a doc or Confluence space, wherever your team can easily reference it. And for each KPI, for each role, I define it, I clearly explain how I'm going to measure it. I give a link to the report that I'm going to use to pull the data. So super transparent. And then I give the scoring bands. So this is what my employees see kind of after I do all of the KPI creation behind the scenes. But clearly that's just one example looking at engagement. What you choose for your community and for your team, it could look completely different based on your strategic goals, what roles you have. Maybe you are a support community, maybe you're an ideation community, et cetera. As long as what you're measuring is SMART, you could track literally almost anything on the employee level. So these are just a couple of other examples to give you a little inspiration for your online community. All right, so once you have everything in place, you're ready to go. This is what you need to know to put them into action. One, consistent reporting is key here. So on my team at BigCommerce, we pull the data every Monday. Each employee has their own Excel spreadsheet where we update the data and email out the spreadsheet. As you guys saw a couple of slides back, super transparent about what we're measuring and how all of my employees have all of those reports and links bookmarked, and they typically pull their own reports a couple of times throughout the week so that they can monitor their own progress. So there's no surprises when they get that email on Monday. And then finally, KPIs, Excel reports, this is all just like one part of the equation, right? It's how you use this data that really matters. So we've got weekly check-ins, coaching sessions, and then I'll add that as a manager, having this spreadsheet, having all of this data is gold when it comes to review time. It's so nice for me to be able to tell a data-driven story when I'm nominating somebody for a raise or promotion at BigCommerce. I've got all the data and I can say, look, like 90% of the time they are exceeding all their metrics in the last 6 months or whatever it may be. So great tool as a manager to have. All right, wanted to show you guys a little under the hood of what this Excel report actually looks like in case this is helpful to you. A couple things I want to draw your attention to. In column B, we take into account how many days our employees are out for the week. So if you were like out sick or on vacation for 3 days a week, we don't think it's fair to hold you accountable for the same level of results of what we would expect have you been there for the full week. So we use a formula to adjust capacity for the week. And then in column C and D, we show our moderators what total score they would need to hit in order to be meeting or exceeding expectations. And then in column S, you can see we leave little notes and encouragement and say like, yes, Queen, you're doing great. This is amazing. Hey, look at this number. You should work on this, etc. All right, wrapping things up with a couple lessons learned. First thing, don't be afraid to always be testing, always be learning. I've probably updated our KPIs at least 3 or 4 times or more. And this is okay. Things are going to change. Your community changes and evolves. Your roles will evolve over time. So it's okay to change them as you need to. The next thing is always use this as a starting point, right? To better understand, better investigate trends. So you might be talking to one of your team members and realize like, man, they're like literally never hitting this goal. What's going on? Is it a skill issue? Is it the goal that needs adjusting? A quick example is we measure in one of our KPIs a resolution rate for our developer community moderator, who is an absolute rock star. And they were having trouble consistently hitting those targets. And the more we dug into the data, it really was through no fault of their own. We learned that the conversations that were happening in our developer area of the community just naturally take longer to resolve. Lots of thread depth, lots of troubleshooting back and forth. So our original assumptions of how long it should take to resolve questions there were incorrect. So we adjusted the KPI to meet the needs of the community. And then last but not least, beware. I've made some goals in the past that were not smart, not following that criteria, and surprised no meaningful results. I'll wrap up there. Quick shout out to all of my team members, past and present, for being my guinea pigs over the years for KPIs. And Jamie, I'll pass the mic to you.
Awesome, Lauren. Thank you so much. That was a really nice way for me personally, and I'm sure for everyone, to kind of wrap up the sessions today. You know, it's really, we've talked big about community and all of these strategies, and now to really focus in on the team. This was awesome. I was going to sneakily ask a question to start things off before we go to that Q&A, but I was curious about you know, the sort of the tension or the balance between the autonomy, right, of setting goals and objectives with your team. Like, how collaborative is this process for you with your team? You know, are they involved in setting these KPIs and deciding what things to go after, or how does it work for you?
Yeah, it's very collaborative. You know, I think naturally I come in with some ideas. You know, I'm bringing ideas to the table based on what I know about, you know, our strategic goals and what I've seen in our data. So I know, have my finger on the pulse of, you know, what I think is going to move the needle. But it's definitely a collaborative process with the entire team. We literally just updated our KPIs. This couldn't be more timely. We literally rolled out a new version of our KPIs on Monday, I think. And my team members were very involved in the process and saw many iterations before we finally kicked it off. So for sure.
Cool. All right. I'm going to quickly try and get some questions in. So Chica asks, you were a team of 1. Woohoo! What KPIs did you focus on first quarter and then third quarter?
Oh, okay. Well, to be totally transparent, when I was a team of 1, back when I started with BigCommerce in 2015, it was just like a completely different ball game, right? Like, with it being just me, my manager did not have community experience. So there was no one like showing me how we should be measuring the space. And it was just a different time in our program's maturity. So KPIs for employees were just like not on the radar. We were in the middle of a redesign and relaunch of our community space. So this is a process that took a while to get here, right? It wasn't something that I started with. It definitely was built over time.
Cool. All right, let's try and get another one in. Well, there's a lot of love for your presentation skills to start with, which I have to, agree with. Awesome slides. All right, so Jessica asks, do the community manager peers know what each other's KPIs are? It sounds like that's true. They're all sharing these dashboards.
Yeah, so we have, it's in a Google Doc. everyone's KPIs, that template where I showed kind of like definition, how we measure, here's the link, here's the bands, that's visible by everyone on the team. Those Excel spreadsheets where we actually present to you how you did, what were the results of that week, that's completely private.
All right, well, there's loads of more questions, but we are out of time. So I'm going to share
we got to get to the chickens. I know I'm like the warm-up act for the chickens today.
Yeah, there's some social stuff going on. So yes, we're going to have to wrap it up. Thanks so much, Lauren. Lots of love for you there in the chat. And yeah, really appreciate all of your insights. Great to hear. And everyone, yeah, I've shared a few links there. If you want to keep in touch with Lauren, I know I do. So yes, go and enjoy yourselves now. We have a networking party and learn how to raise backyard chickens, which is important in this work from home environment.
Yeah, I'm just happy that I could be the warm-up act to the chickens today. Thank you guys so much. Jamie shared my blog post, and I'd love to connect with you for any questions that I didn't get to answer. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, everyone, for engaging. All right. See everyone later.
Thanks.